Hey Don, what's up, buddy?
How are you? Merry
I'm
Christmas
great.
Eve.
Merry Christmas Eve. Merry Christmas Eve. Merry Christmas Eve to everybody out there. So tonight we are going to do our first bourbon and cigar pairing review. We opened up the whole page with just bourbon, but now we're gonna do our little cigar pairing as well. And Dawn and I picked a nice familiar bourbon for the holiday season for this weekend because we know a lot of you guys might be out there sipping on this. And we also know that, you know, a lot of you guys might be sipping on this and not know what cigar to choose. So we picked a cigar that's really readily available everywhere. So Don, why don't you take us through the surprise bourbon today?
Cool. So, as you mentioned, something that you may all have on your shelves, or at least have been seeing a lot of in the area recently, we have Buffalo Trace, the original. Almost everybody has a positive review of this if you talk to whiskey drinkers. This is the flagship product from Buffalo Trace Distillery, one of the largest down there in Kentucky. It's proofed to 90. And it's on your shelves at $27.99, unless you're paying secondary prices.
$27.99.
Yeah.
Crazy. Everybody makes a big deal. It is a big deal, right?
Yep.
And Buffalo Trace keeps their whiskeys and bourbons nice and affordable for all of us, and they're very, very good bourbons.
Absolutely true. That is one of the greatest things about Buffalo Trace. I got a fresh crack on my bottle. I don't know how long yours has been opened, but
Right before I got here, so we're good.
there you go. I'm getting a lot of cherry in the nose, which is something I don't usually get from Buffalo Trace.
Definitely. Yeah, it's almost like a chocolatey cherry,
Yep.
I guess. You know, like those dark chocolate covered cherries is what it smells like.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely some, God, it almost kind of smells nutmegish too, doesn't it?
Yep.
Like a peppery
Yep.
type,
There's like a little. It's peppery. I would say more.
peppery, but a sweet pepper.
Mm-hmm.
Let's try this. Definitely that peppery,
Yeah.
oaky. Obviously, that's what we're gonna taste.
That
But
rye spice.
yeah, and then the backside, you get that sweet.
Right.
You definitely get that sweet on the backside.
You
Yeah.
get a sweetness, which is like combined with a like a dry dark chocolate. Um, and I almost want to say some tobacco smoke, right?
Yeah. And maybe even some dirt torpedo taste. So with this peppery, spicy, sweet type bourbon, we just say and even maybe even some hints of like a cinnamon type. You know, maybe that's where some of the peppers coming from as well.
Mm-hmm.
We went with a Laruton Drew Estate Dirt Torpedo, so it's a torpedo cut, and this has definitely a little more of that sweeter flavor. Not sweet, not overwhelmingly sweet. And when you smell it, this is no joke. You smell a very big similarity between the Buffalo Trace and this cigar. It's crazy, Don.
Mm-hmm.
And Don doesn't smoke, so Don doesn't have an appreciation for the smoke as much as I do.
Yep.
But Don, you do know, because I think you actually bought me a Buffalo Trace cigar,
I did.
right?
Yep.
And it's a great cigar,
Mm-hmm.
and you can taste like the Buffalo Trace.
Yep.
So I wouldn't pair, as funny as it is, the Buffalo Trace cigar with the Buffalo Trace whiskey,
Right.
with the bourbon.
Yeah, you probably get some overkill that way.
Yeah, I think it would just it'd be too much. You wouldn't appreciate the taste of both of them. So I'm going to snip this off a little bit here, cut it short and fine. in the Drew Estate, Laruton, and it comes in a couple different sizes and stuff. And truthfully, this one probably would have gone good with that other bourbon we had the other day, the first one.
Sure.
What was that, Don?
That was Hardin's Creek. We drank the Jacob's Well. Is the 15
Jacob's
year.
Well. That was the one that had the nutmeg and kind of that sweeter,
that wintry spice.
Yeah. Don, what proof is the Buffalo Trace there?
90.
The 90 proof.
Yep. So they bring Buffalo Trace down to that excessively approachable 90 proof. Fans of larger cast strength or 101s, give it a hard time for that. But
yeah,
tons of people can get into whiskey with something in the 90s.
Yeah, and this is not a real hard one to sip on. You definitely don't need, for those of you that really don't get into the higher proofs, you don't need any ice with this one.
Absolutely.
It's a nice, mellow, smooth drink, but it's still got a little kick on the back end. So here, we're going to pair this up. Let's take another sip of the bourbon, Don. Cheers.
Cheers.
Salud. Let's light this baby up. Yeah. So, I mean, you could taste the flavors just mesh together. I swear to you. Like, you got to try it. Like, if you're drinking some Buffalo Trace, go out and grab one of these Drew Estate Dirt Torpedoes. It matches and pairs with this whiskey, with this bourbon, so well. So well. Don, the Jacob's Creek that we had, what proof was that? Wasn't that like
108?
108?
Yep.
Okay, that's considerably higher.
Yep.
Like, shit, 15% higher probably, right?
Reminders.
15 proof. 18, I guess, so 9%.
Yeah, so this cigar is great with this bourbon. It's a wonderful, wonderful mix.
So when you're smoking and drinking, when your palate's wet with the bourbon, what changes about the smoke there?
It really, when you have the bourbon, whenever it's, whatever proof it is, it's always going to be a 80 plus, 85 plus bourbon that we're going to be drinking here. You still have that bite, right? And when you take your cigar, you want to get similar nodes and tastes with the bourbons so that when the smoke hits it, you don't taste the smoke. You taste the flavor coming out of the bourbon and the flavor coming out of the cigar. So if you're just smoking a cigar, all you smoke, it eventually gets to just smoke, When you get down to the knob, it's just smoke and maybe some heat. But when you're sipping it with a bourbon that pairs good with it, you taste those flavors so much more in both. Whether it's the bourbon or the cigar, like you just, everything is just amplified. It's pretty insane. And I gotta tell you, if I was smoking some kind of, Swisher Sweet or something that was real papery and just chemically like infused, you wouldn't taste as smooth as what this is. It's a real good pair. I like it. So obviously Buffalo Trace is one of our favorites.
Yep.
But we've kind of been narrowing it down to favorites based on, proof and based on price, value. And we're going to do, based on pairing as well with the cigars that we pick. So sometime in the future, we might do a Buffalo Trace. There were a lot of other cigars that we could have used that may not be as easy to come across, but because it's, Christmas time, we wanted to make sure everybody could have these available to them. So, Don, what would you say about the Buffalo Trace original?
Yeah, so one thing I've always said about Buffalo Trace is that at the price point, you cannot buy a better whiskey, in my opinion. At $27.99, Buffalo Trace is going to take the crown every single time. I mentioned earlier those high proof drinkers. I am a cask strength fan. I love big whiskeys. I love whiskeys that are almost syrupy. But this one, there's just some really special things about Buffalo Trace. It's right up there. I have to give Buffalo Trace a 9.5.
That's great. I would agree. Like for the strength, for the sipping, for the taste, the overall appearance, and how you can taste everything just shouting out from that bourbon. Like I think I'm right there with you. Mid nines. Pairing it with the Dirt Torpedo, I got to tell you, this is one of the best pairings that you could have, to be honest with you. Just for an everyday kind of like, you and your friends getting together and a familiar bourbon and a familiar cigar, you can't go wrong. And for that, and on a holiday season when you have a lot of people around, and it's cheap, right? The Dirt Torpedo is only like $4 to $5, and then the Buffalo Trace, I got a little bottle, which is only like 20, right?
Yep.
Not even, maybe 19. And you got the big bottle, which is under 30. So you could buy a box and a bottle, and 5 of you have a real good time.
Absolutely.
Sipping for an hour or two. For the pairing, I'm gonna do an 8.9. It's good, it's cheap, and it's fun, and it tastes really good.
Absolutely. Something that everybody can get behind. There's nothing offensive about anything that's happening in Buffalo Trace, and along with that Dirt Torpedo, I'm sure. It's just a great thing for all people.
No doubt. Hey, Don, this was awesome.
Absolutely.
You're in Philly, I'm in Williamsport, or where are you at exactly?
I'm in Montgomery County, northeast
Montgomery
of Philadelphia.
County, fair enough.
Yep.
Happy holidays, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. We'll be
All
back
right.
together
We'll see y'all
for the
later.
next one. Cheers.
Merry Christmas.